Hey guys, and welcome to the long-awaited credit repair video that I've been promising you all for God knows how long at this point. Anyways, I've spent a lot of time putting this together. I took some questions from you guys online and I'm ready to get to this today. So, if you're one of the people that asked a question on Reddit or on one of the previous videos, I really appreciate it. Thanks for giving me some questions to respond to. And let's just jump into this. So, credit repair. How to build credit from no credit or bad credit. That's what we're going to be discussing today. First and foremost, if you haven't already watched my previous videos on the dispute process, you might want to watch those first and then come back to this. Prerequisites, shameless plug. My name on YouTube is 716green. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, subscribe, click the little notification bell so that you're notified when I put videos like this out. This video on the screen right here is part of the credit repair playlist. I have two videos here. The repair your credit score, raise your credit score in 30 days by yourself, and repair bad credit for free in 30 days, everything you'll ever need to know. The difference between these two videos, the first one is about 10 minutes long. It's a quick overview, I guess is the best way to put it. The second video is 35 minutes long. Very in-depth, a lot of information. It explains everything you need to know about credit. I'm going to go over a lot of the same information in a different way in this video, but those videos will be very helpful. If you haven't gone through the dispute phase yet, please check those out. First and foremost, the most important thing that I can tell you, do not pay a credit repair company. You're more effective with your own money, and you are the only person that is ever going to care about your credit. I mean, you can pay them to pretend they care, but no one's ever going to care about your credit the way you do. Your credit is better off in your hands, and you are much more capable of repairing or fixing your credit than they are. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but in my opinion, there's no reason to ever hire a credit repair company. And take it from my experience, I have hired a credit repair company in the past. Biggest waste of money ever. Actually, the reason that I'm so passionate on credit repair is because the credit repair company that I hired, they screwed up and sent me the letter that they meant to send to TransUnion. When I opened it and saw what the dispute letter was comprised of, I was shocked how much money I was paying this company for something I was very, very clearly able to do myself. So, what I would recommend here, and of course none of this is sponsored material or anything like that, but Credit Karma. It's my favorite tool. I think it's the easiest way to check your credit. Now, keep in mind that if you want to see your full credit score your full credit report, you need to go to annualcreditreport.com right here. This is the only place, literally the only place that you can get your credit score, your credit reports for free. Once a year, according to federal law, you are entitled to get a copy of all three of your credit reports. Your credit report through TransUnion, your credit report through Equifax, and your credit report through Experian. Credit Karma gives you your credit scores from TransUnion and Equifax, and it also gives you an overview of your credit report. Although Credit Karma isn't technically your credit report, it's all of the same information that's on your credit report anyways. There's very little difference. The reason there's one of these signs over the Equifax logo, I'm sure you all know about the recent Equifax breach that happened. Very unfortunate. Affected about 50% of all Americans, which is insane. And it was just discovered or released a few days ago that there was much more information released than initially thought. I think Equifax is just a dirty company. All the executives sold a whole bunch of their shares before they reported this problem to the public. Just a disgusting company. Now, unfortunately, you can't choose to not use Equifax. You're stuck with these credit bureaus. But after what happened with Equifax, the good news is that a lot of banks and creditors have stopped using Equifax. So I would say don't even worry about Equifax. You can still get the information on your credit report from Equifax using Credit Karma, but TransUnion, that's what I use as my, the rule of thumb, my basis, whatever you want to call it. My TransUnion report is the one that I care about. It's the one that I'm worried about, and it's the one that I follow. The very simple reason is TransUnion, they're not expensive to report to. So from the agency side, collection agencies can report to TransUnion fairly easily, where it costs more money and it's a little bit more difficult to get approved to report to Equifax or Experian. Now, a lot of people are worried about their FICO score. Everyone knows the word FICO. A lot of people, what they don't know is that it stands for the Fair Isaac Corporation. That's what FICO is. TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they all use what's called Vantage Score. I think they might be on Vantage Score 4.0 by now. Maybe it's still 3.0. I don't know. It used to be 2.0 back when I disputed everything on my credit. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. My TransUnion report is the only one that I care about. It's the only one that I worry about because it's generally all-encompassing. It has everything on there. If I look at my TransUnion credit report versus my Experian or my Equifax credit report, there's generally nothing on my Equifax or Experian report that's not already on TransUnion. TransUnion is great. That's just my personal opinion. Definitely check out all three of your credit reports without a doubt. At least once a year, check all three of them. Make sure they're accurate. Dispute whatever is not accurate. Again, if you want to learn how to dispute anything, watch my previous videos. I explain that all in depth. So, credit is a catch-22. With no credit or bad credit, you can't gain new credit. With no positive credit, your score continues to stagnate. Good credit doesn't usually project in a straight line. It just needs an upward trajectory. Creating better credit usually involves taking small hits for the greater good. So what do I mean by that? As you can see, this green line, the bright green line, this is the upward trajectory. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July. I just realized it says Jason, Jason. July, August, September, October, November. That's interesting. Anyways, so think of this as your credit score. And don't get your expectations too high right off the bat. Your score is going to go up and down, but overall you want an upward trajectory. What you can expect to see is your score will go up when you get granted a new line of credit, or you get a credit limit increase or something like that, or you pay off a balance. If you have student loans and you pay that off in a balloon payment, that's going to significantly increase your credit score. Now, if you apply for a new credit card and you have a hit on your credit report, a hard inquiry, then you might see a small drop on your credit report. Now, hard inquiries, which I'll get to in a little bit, they're very lightly weighted. They're not that big of a deal. You can have a whole bunch of hard inquiries and it's not going to hurt your credit score as much as a lot of other things. But in order to get good credit, you need to make little sacrifices here or there. You need to sacrifice 2 or 3 points so that you can get 10 points 2 months from now. And that's the mentality that you need to have. Don't get upset if your score drops by a couple points, as long as it's for the greater good and as long as you're seeing this overall upward trajectory, like in the bright green line. So, high impact credit factors. These are the things that are going to directly and most heavily impact your credit score. You've got your credit card use, which is high impact, your payment history, high impact, and derogatory marks, all high impact. Derogatory marks are collections, tax liens, bankruptcies, civil judgments. Basically anything negative is a derogatory mark. It means exactly what it sounds like it means. Credit card use, let's go to this first and just go over this. Now, you might recognize this. These are screenshots from Credit Karma. You're going to see a few screenshots from my Credit Karma account. I masked some information. Not that I think there's anything wrong with showing some specific things, like which credit cards I have, but I figured it would just be better to not give that information out to a bunch of strangers. So don't take it personally. I'm sure you're all a bunch of nice people. I only took some selective screenshots here. Now, just because I have 0% credit card use doesn't mean that I don't have an outstanding balance on any of my credit cards. It just means that I have enough credit that my overall utilization is 0%. So I'll get to that in a minute too. I'll show you how that works. Okay, so hard to make these videos at work. Anyways, where was I? Credit card use, payment history, and derogatory marks. Let's take a look at a spreadsheet here. Okay, so what we're going to talk about here is your percent of credit used. That's going to be your credit card use. I don't know how easy it'll be to swap back and forth here. So credit card use, that's what we're talking about here. Percent of credit used. Now you have the balance. We're assuming that you have a $500 balance and that you're carrying that through from month to month. Not a good idea. Pay off your balances in full if possible, or as much as you possibly can. If you can't pay it off in full or a large chunk, at the very least pay the minimum. But I'm presenting these numbers just because they're easy to work with and it proves the point. So let's say that you have an outstanding balance of $500 and your credit limit is $1,000. That's 50% credit card use. As you can see over here, 50 to 74% is bad. Not as bad as 75% or more, but it's right up there. It's not good. You don't want that. You want to keep that under 9%. Never going to be able to get through this. You want to keep it between 0 and 9% ideally. 0% is the best. 10 to 29% is okay. 30 to 49% is, I don't know what I would call that. I wouldn't call it okay. It's manageable maybe. 50 to 74% is bad, and 75% is very bad. This is a high impact variable, so it's very important that you have the lowest possible percentage here because it's going to have a high impact on your score. So again, you have a $500 balance on a $1,000 credit limit. That's 50% right there. Not a good number. Now, if you get this credit limit increase from $1,000 to $2,000, suddenly it drops down to 25%. And let's see where 25% brings you. 25% is going to be right here, the okay area. Now, let's go back to the other screen. Let's say that you, again, get it doubled. Now you have a $4,000 balance. That's 12.5%. If you still have that $500 balance on the $4,000 available credit. If you have a $500 balance on an $8,000 available credit, that is 6.25 or 6.25%. 6.25%. So that's actually good. That's great. Let's switch over one more time. You're going to be in this ideal area between 0 and 9%. So the whole time you kept the same outstanding balance, you just have a larger credit limit, and now you're in this good, healthy area under 9%. So just something to keep in mind. If you can get your credit limits increased, that's great, because then you could spend more money and not have it affect your credit card utilization. Your open credit utilization is very, very important. If you have a $500 balance on $64,000 of available credit, it's going to be 0.78%. As I'm sure you all remember from math class in first grade or somewhere around that area, it rounds up because it's over 0.5. So this is going to be 1%. Over on this screen, that's going to show up as 1% utilization. Now, if you have $128,000 in credit, this 0.39% is going to round down. This is going to be 0%. So, and just to be clear, I don't have anywhere near $128,000 worth of available credit, but I do have a balance right now. It just so happens that I have enough available credit that even though I carried a balance from last month to this month, a small balance granted, it's still at 0% on paper. So something to be mindful of. You always want to get the highest possible credit balances that you can. One important thing that I'm going to say is self-control is a big thing. If you have $20,000 of available credit and you don't trust yourself to manage $20,000 because you got this credit and it feels like free money, if you don't trust yourself with $20,000 in credit, then don't allow the credit card company to give you $20,000 in credit. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, you're probably having trouble obtaining credit, so we're going to get there. Just keep that in mind. I got very nervous when I was approved for a credit card and they gave me what at the time I thought was a ridiculous amount of credit. But, now it's my favorite credit card. I pay it off in full every single month, no issues. I don't spend more than I can afford to spend. And it's great for my credit score. My credit score is fantastic. That's one of the reasons that I can carry a small balance from month to month and keep my credit card use at 0%. But if you don't trust yourself with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of credit, don't let the banks give it to you. That is credit suicide. If you let them give you more credit than you can reasonably manage. The next high impact factor is payment history. It shows that I have 100% payment history, that every single payment I've made has been on time. What I want you to notice here is how close these numbers are. 100% is 100%. It's perfect. That's good. That's what you want. 99% is okay. 98%, not so good. 97% is bad. Under 97% is very bad. Excuse me. Good afternoon. Alright, goodbye. Where were we? 100%. Great. 99%. Okay. 98%. Not so great. 97%. Bad. Under 97%. Very bad. So you can see there's not much margin for error there. You really have to have a good payment history. Now, as you can see underneath the payment history, this is a snapshot from a student loan that I had back in 2009 that, as you can tell, I didn't really take care of it very well. Just to give you some context, back in 2011, my credit was terrible. We're talking about like under 500. I just didn't have the money to pay back my student loans. I didn't have a good job at the time. It wasn't a good time for me. My credit was hit hard. And credit is like money. You can blow through a lot of money really quickly. But then to make money, it's a lot of hard work. Credit operates much in the same way. But as you can see, back then, in 2010, a couple of my payments were made on time. These blank spots here, and this is what it looks like. It's always a grid. When the creditors report your payment history, they report it in a grid just like this. So you can see in 2010, they didn't even report it a few of the months. They reported it on April, May, June. They didn't report it in July or August. They did report it in September, October. They didn't report it in November, December, January, February, March. We're in 2011 now. We have a couple payments that were fine. Apparently in April of 2011, that's when I stopped making payments. That's what my credit report would state, at least. I had this information fixed, or I should say taken off of my credit report, because when I paid off the account in full in 2013, I then disputed the information. At that point in time, the creditor was already paid back. They didn't care about my dispute, so they're not going to continue to validate the debt after a dispute's been filed. So I think that should make sense to you. If you don't really understand what I mean by that, again, watch the other videos in the credit repair playlist. It explains that concept a little bit better. But the student loan company, the company that loaned me that money, they don't care if the credit bureaus are hitting my credit score, because they've already been paid back. They don't have any more interest in hurting my credit score. So when I disputed the payment history, the late payment history, they went ahead and took it off. It was as simple as writing one dispute letter and they removed it. You see there's one time where it's 90 days late and then 120 days late, and that goes on until it's caught back up. You can see that there's 90 to 119 days late, and 120 to 149 days late are the classifications that they use. Don't let your accounts go into default if you can help it. If it does happen and it's out of your control, try to get it paid before 30 days. If you can't get the 30 days, try to get it paid in 60 days. If you can't get it paid in 60 days, get it paid under 90 days. Once you get into that 90 days, that's when it's really going to start to affect your score bad. Now, I have another spreadsheet here that I'm going to use to show you an example of this. So this is payment history. Let's say that you have 12 total payments, and out of those 12 payments, you've only made 2 of them on time. So you have 10 late payments. Now your percent of on-time payments is 16.67%. That's terrible. You're so far below that 97% unacceptable rate that it's going to feel hopeless. Now, with each passing month, let's say that you're not making payments, this number is going to continue to drop. 11 late payments out of 13 total payments, that's 15%. 12 late payments out of 14 total payments, that's 14.29%. You get the point. This will continue to drop and drop and drop. Now, let's see what happens if you stop at 13, you get your act together. Now, we're going to continue making our payments on time. So the late payments are going to stay at 13, but this number, total payments, is going to continue to increment. So let's go ahead and drag this down. You know, that didn't work how I thought it would. Okay, so now 13 out of 23 payments were at 43%. So I'd imagine you're probably thinking it's going to take me years to get back to that 97%. What you want to do in this type of situation is you want to get as many open credit lines as possible. We're going to talk about the different types of credit that you can get with no credit or bad credit later on towards the end of this video. But this example that I'm showing you here with the 13 late payments, this right here is under the pretense that you're only making one payment every month. So you have one account, you're making one payment. So now let's say that you have the 13 late payments, but now instead of one account that you need to pay every month, let's say you have 3 accounts. So now it's incrementing from 15 to 18, 18 to 21, 21 to 24, 24 to 27, 27 to 30, 30 to 33. You get the point. So now we're at 66.67%. Let's say that you have 4 accounts instead of 3. I mean, I think you see where it's going at this point. That's not right. So, I mean, we're talking about a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. You already got it back up to 71%. Not great, not ideal, but you can keep this up, and the more accounts that you have, if you have 5 accounts, 6 accounts, and you're making at least your minimum payment on time every month, then, I mean, you're going to be in good shape in a matter of a year. But all of this takes patience. Remember, patience is a virtue. Your credit score, you might have destroyed it overnight, but it's going to take a little bit of time to repair. The majority of the damage can be fixed by doing a few rounds of dispute letters. The first round should take care of the bulk of it. The second round will get a couple leftover things, but at that point you have a good idea of who's actively reporting to the credit bureau and which debts are valid and active, still in collections, whatever the case is. So you just need to be patient and make your payments on time. But it's very easy to stop making payments, and for that number, you can get this all the way up until it's right at that 97, 98, 99%, and then you start missing payments again, especially if you have 6 open accounts or 5, 4 open accounts, whatever it is. If you stop making payments on those accounts, it's going to drop quicker than it went up. So something to be mindful of. That's the reality of the situation. It's not fortunate, it's not ideal, but that's how it is. The next thing that we're going to talk about is derogatory marks. If you have an account in collections, and this drives me crazy. I own a collection agency. There's so many videos on YouTube saying you don't have to pay collection agencies. Okay, yeah, you don't have to pay collection agencies, but there's a lot of collection agencies that are going to file a civil judgment against you and get their money back in court if you don't repay them. If you're dealing with an agency that's not going to take you to court for whatever reason, maybe they're too small, they don't have the resources, maybe the debt is insignificant, they don't really care, you and your family and your associates and your neighbors are going to be getting calls regularly, and this is going to go on for years. Now, one thing that I hear all the time, we contact someone, even on a debt that's 2 weeks old, freshly charged off, we call someone about the debt, and they say, well, this sounds like a scam. I've heard about the scam on the news. And these people know very well that they just took out this loan a couple weeks ago. And we can quote it for them. We can tell them exactly what the balances were, the date that they took it out, the location that they took it out, the bank account number that they used. All of this information, we can verify their social security number, their date of birth with them, and they'll tell us it's a scam. I don't think that they really believe it's a scam. I just think that there's a lot of people that really believe that they don't need to repay their debt. It's unfortunate that people think that way, but let's just get this out of the way. Cooperate with collection agencies. You know what happens if you don't pay that first collection agency? They sue you for the balance, you get a default judgment against you, or your account gets sold to a more aggressive collection agency. That more aggressive collection agency harasses you, they sue you, or they sell it to an even more aggressive collection agency. Once you get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th agency down that list, your relatives are sick of you. You've already had to change your phone number a few times because you're losing sleep over these phone calls. And the agency that has your debt, and I hate to say it, but there are some bad apples. There are some agencies that you don't want to have access to your information. The longer you go without paying a debt, the more easily accessible it's going to be to the open market, the unlicensed agencies that purchase your debt on the internet for pennies on the dollar. If you pay it as soon as you possibly can, and it's higher up that chain of title, you're going to be dealing with more legitimate agencies, so don't push it off. I don't know what makes people think they don't have to pay collection agencies. And like I said, you don't have to pay collection agencies, but it's definitely not in your best interest to not pay collection agencies. If any of you are dealing with a collection agency and you want some advice, you want some guidance, you want to know how to deal with it, let me know. Ask me on Reddit, ask me in the questions down below, shoot me an email. I'm happy to let you know the reality of the situation. And I'm going to go through a sample debt portfolio and show you the information that the collection agencies have. Now, keep in mind, what I'm going to be showing you isn't an actual debt portfolio because I can't show you people's names and social security numbers and addresses. It's all fictional information. It was completely created for the sake of this video. But I think you'll find it interesting, especially if you're not in this industry. So let's move on past collections. Pay collection agencies, at least cooperate with them. The collection agencies report to the credit bureaus, so you want to keep them happy. If you can't pay them, ask for a forbearance, especially with something like student loans. Sometimes you can work out a forbearance with them or a deference, whatever you want to call it. They'll give you an entire year where they won't report any delinquencies. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 3 months. But they'll give you some time to get your life back on track without letting the account get into worse standings. So ask for that at the very least. Excuse me. Okay, so back to business here. Bankruptcies. If you file for bankruptcy, you're going to, it's going to haunt you for 7 years. There's no sugarcoating it. A bankruptcy is going to severely impact your credit. It's not completely unmanageable. If you have to file bankruptcy, file bankruptcy. Certainly don't make it your first choice. It's not a good option unless it's your only option. Let's say that you dug yourself in so deep there's just no climbing out of that hole. If you qualify for bankruptcy, you qualify for bankruptcy. It's up to the courts, but you want to avoid bankruptcy at all costs. A civil judgment, let's say for example you owe a collection agency some money, you refuse to pay them, you duck their calls, they serve you with some papers, or they don't serve you with papers. I'm sure you can find plenty of news articles and hear about the nasty tricks of the trade, which we don't partake in here, but I have heard of agencies that intentionally use loopholes that allow them to obtain default judgments against the debtors without even having them properly notified about the debt. But again, if you pay your debts, if you work with the agencies, that type of stuff doesn't happen to you. If you have judgments, civil judgments, I believe that's public record. You can see it on your credit report. All the information is going to be on your credit report. You can pay judgments off. In fact, you should pay judgments off, and then they get removed from your credit report. If not removed, at least they're indicated that they're paid off. They show up as a zero balance under judgments. So if your credit report is pulled, a creditor might be able to see that you had a judgment against you, but they'll also see that it was paid off. After so many years, it falls off your credit report, just like a bankruptcy, depending on what state you're in, 7 to 10 years, that bankruptcy is off your credit report. But even 2 years after filing bankruptcy, you could have your credit report back up to a reasonable number. 640 is the magic number. 640 is where you can start obtaining unsecured credit, but you want to shoot for 650 because things have changed in the past few years. 650 is the real magic number. 640 is the magic number, technically, but I would say don't waste your hard inquiries applying for credit cards with a flat 640. That's that. Now, also, you can see down here, when delinquencies are reported to the credit bureaus, they see it like this, 30, 60, 90 days late. It all obviously goes up to 120, and past 120, it's just severely delinquent, and it will really, really bring your score down. Like I said several times, you want to keep your score up to 100% payment history. So you can see I have a 100% payment history, but you can also clearly see that even just a few years ago, I had severely delinquent accounts. So there is hope. Credit age. This is very interesting. I did mask the names of my credit cards. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with showing it to people, but I would just prefer not to. I feel like there's a little bit of privacy to be had. Now, as you can see, this is a screenshot from Credit Karma. My first credit card right here has a terrible APR, but this credit card was opened 9 years and 4 months ago. The only reason this credit card is still open is because I need that line of credit. I need that credit card to keep my credit age at a reasonable place. Now, as you could tell, between 9 years and 4 months ago, when I was, young, dumb, and whatever the expression is, I applied for credit, and I wasn't capable of maintaining it. It was irresponsible for me to apply for a credit card when I was that young. But I applied, I was granted a credit card, which is crazy because so many people apply and they can't get approved for credit cards these days because of a lack of credit history. Now, this credit card company was happy to give me a credit card, right on my birthday, basically. Anyways, terrible APR, but there's no annual fee, so I don't use this credit card, but I keep it, locked up in the bank vault. It's there for an emergency if I need it, but at this point, all I'm doing is hanging on to it for the credit age. Now, my next two credit cards between 2 years and 1 year and 10 months ago, so around the same time frame. This, as you can tell, is about 2 years ago is when I got my credit score up to that 650 range finally. So I would describe one of those cards as being a luxury card. The brand of, the bank, the brand is something that you associate with luxury. You can probably figure out what it is. And then there's what I would call my general purpose credit card. Now, I had both of these credit cards assigned to specific scenarios. So, for example, I would have all of my bills go on to this card, my general purpose card. And then when I went out to dinner, went to restaurants, I used my luxury card, because the luxury card, as it were, has it has specific benefits for card holders when you use it at a restaurant. Double points, cash back, you know how that goes. Now we're at 2 years, 1 year and 10 months ago. Now we have the emergency use credit card. It's a decent card, but it's hard to pay. The reason it's hard to pay is because the bank that credit card is issued through, I don't have one within 100 miles of where I live. I applied for it because I liked the bank. I use the bank for something specific. I don't want to get into details too much, but I use the bank. I really like them. I applied for a credit card through them while my credit was good. I was, at this point, as you can see, this period of time, I was just applying for as much credit as I could get. Sorry, I didn't mean to advance that. I figured my credit score is good. Let's get as much credit as I can, and then wait 2 years, because I don't mind driving up my hard inquiries. They're going to fall off after 2 years. Now, after getting this credit card with a pretty good credit limit, I realized it was hard to pay, because the only way to really pay them is to have a checking account with that same bank. Now, at the time, I had a business checking account with that bank, but it was a personal credit card. You can't pay off a personal credit card with a business checking account. I mean, you can, but your accountant isn't going to be happy with you. It's also not a good practice. Business is business, personal is personal. So I call that my emergency use credit card. If I need to use it, I will, but I have to jump through hoops to repay that credit card. It's a flaw with that particular bank. They don't make it easy to pay off. I think it's incentive to try to get you to bank with them also, but it's in my opinion, it's just bad business. Now, I have this Amazon Rewards credit card and my favorite credit card. Both of them are issued through the same bank. What happened was I was ordering through Amazon. I get everything from Amazon. Everything from groceries to video games, you name it, I get it from Amazon. Clothes, the shirt might be from Amazon, probably is from Amazon. I love Amazon. So I got an Amazon Rewards credit card because they give you 5% cash back on anything that you purchase from Amazon, or at least anything that's Prime. So 5% cash back, that's crazy. I get so much cash back from them, it's insane. 5% is great. And I think there was an introductory offer where it was double cash back, so I was getting like 10% cash back for a couple of months. When I got approved for that card, it was just outrageous. Still, it's one of the best credit cards that I have. Now, after using that credit card specifically with Amazon for so long, it didn't have very many benefits outside of Amazon. So, I like the bank, I can tell you that much. I loved the bank that issued that card. I just didn't want to use my Amazon card. I didn't want to swipe that card when I went out for groceries. So I applied for another credit card with that same bank. I was approved for that, and it is to this day my favorite credit card. Forget the luxury brands of credit cards. Sometimes just the well-established banks have the best incentives. The reason this is my favorite credit card is because...
Yeah. You good?
Yeah.
You don't know like that.
I'm not yet. I'm making a video. The reason that I went to that bank is because they're reputable. Two, I love that they serviced my Amazon account and they did such a great job. But specifically, it's 1.5% cash back on everything. So I can spend this card, I can use this card when I'm buying groceries, I could use it for gas, I could use it to pay my taxes, and I get 1.5% cash back on everything. Now, there's specific things that give you 3% cash back, like restaurants, for example. So look at the benefits of any card when you're planning on getting a credit card. See what the benefits are for all of the credit cards that you work with or that you have the ability to apply for. And definitely don't waste your hard inquiries on credit cards that don't have good incentives. If you travel a lot, you might want a travel credit card. I don't travel very often. I'm not one for airplanes. So I like the cash back and the point cards that give you incentives. I love Amazon, so a lot of credit cards these days give you Amazon gift cards that you can buy with points. There's just so much free money. If you use your credit card instead of a debit card to buy everything for an entire year, you get at least 1%, maybe 1.5%, anywhere from 1 to 3% cash back on every single purchase you make, even 5% in some cases. I mean, it's free money. Why not do it? I haven't used cash or a debit card in years now. All I use is credit cards to pay for everything. I also pay off my credit card bill several times a month. I'll get to that later in the video. But I like to have a zero balance carried over every single month. This right here, these bottom two, you can see 7 months and 1 month old. These are both issued through the same bank, but these are specialty lines of credit. This one right here was a big ticket item. I needed to buy something that was expensive. I didn't feel like draining my savings to buy it, so I got a specific line of credit. And again, I don't want to get too much into detail with it, but that same bank also issues medical credit cards. So I had a medical procedure I needed recently that wasn't covered by my insurance. It was very expensive. Again, I didn't want to drain my savings, so I got that medical credit card through the same bank that issues this electronics company, I guess you could say, credit card. And now I have these two credit cards issued to the same bank. It's an up-and-comer. It's really been a hit on my credit age. Now, there's this company called Final. You can see it down here, Final Incorporated. They shut down. I love this bank. It was so cool. You could generate a brand new card number and set parameters for it. So you could say, I need a new Visa card number that will only work for 3 months and it will only work on this website. Or I want a card that expires after 1 month. Or I want a card for one-time use. It was a great card for buying things online. And again, they had great incentives too. They had a good cash back program. I believe they were bought out, and that's why they went out of business. It's not that I think they failed. I'm pretty sure they were actually bought out. But Final was a great company. Now, I had this card for, I think, about 2 years. So when they closed that down, it lowered my average credit age. Or at least it impacted it negatively in some way. Now, I want you to take a look at this. This is interesting. Let's go back over to the spreadsheet here. Credit age. You might notice that my credit age doesn't exactly make sense. You see 2 years and 1 month right here. Now, the reason for that... Excuse me. Let's take a look at this. These are the cards. I have them labeled the same way I do over on that PowerPoint or Google Slides presentation. There's the first credit card, the luxury card, general purpose, whatever. This is how many years and how many months they've been open for. Now, the one thing that's not factored in over here is my auto loan. I have an auto loan that's 8 months old. So what I've done is I've converted the years and months just into months here. I've then taken the average, which comes out to be 25. That's the average of all of these months put together. So you multiply them all together, and then you divide it by the amount of, in this case, lines of credit. So my average credit length is 25 months, which is 2.08 years. So if we take a look over at what Credit Karma, or TransUnion in this case, is saying, 2 years and 1 month. Yep, that makes sense. 2 years and 1 month. That's exactly what this tells me here. So now let's do something interesting. Let's say that I close out this medical credit and this big ticket item here. Let's say that I close those out. They're no longer open credit, so now my credit age goes from 2 years and 1 month to a little bit over 2.5 years. Let's say that I pay my auto loan off. Let's say that I pay my auto loan off entirely, as well as my medical credit card and this big ticket item credit card. Excuse me. Good afternoon. We're a collection agency. People call us and just press buttons in the phone. Like, they just want to see how we answer the phone, what the name of the company is. I just hate how dishonest people are. Just call us and say, you know, I saw this on my credit report and I would like to know what's going on, but I don't want to get too off track. So, where was I here? So let's say that I pay off my auto loan, I close out this big ticket item credit card, and I finish paying off this medical credit card, and those are all paid off. I close those accounts. Now suddenly it's up to just about 3 years. On the other hand, let's say that I close this first credit card that I ever had, let's close that out. Now I'm down to 1.18 years or 14 months, 1 year and 2 months. That's horrible. That's almost cut in half from what I have right now, which is already bad. So this credit card right here, this is my savior. So get a credit card as soon as possible and hang on to it. Don't let it get closed. Don't let it default. Don't let it go into collections. Keep that card open as soon as possible. If you don't have a credit card right now, get one as soon as possible. If you're on this video because you can't get a credit card, then we'll take care of that. Don't worry about it just yet because I'm going to walk you through that in a little bit. But establishing a good length of credit is very, very important. Let's do one more thing, for example. I use the Amazon Rewards card, but I don't use this emergency use card. I love this, my favorite credit card, but I could replace that with either row 4 or 5, the luxury or the general purpose, because they're comparable. They're very similar. I could technically get rid of these. I can delete all of those lines of credit, or not delete, but close them out. Now I'm up to 3 years, a little bit over 3 years. I pay off my auto loan, and I'm nearing 4 years at this point. So that's something that you need to be mindful of. You don't want to close a credit card that you've had open for a significant period of time because it's helping you more than you realize. Don't forget that this is, if we can take a look back over here, this is medium impact. So it's not as high impact as credit card use or open credit utilization, payment history, or derogatory marks, but it is the next most important factor after that. So now you can see up here, it's really bad if it's under 2 years. Between 2 to 4 years is also pretty bad. 5 to 6 years is good. 7 to 8 years is good. 9 or more years is excellent. So if I really, really wanted to, get this to look nice, I could pay off my auto loan, close out all of my credit cards except this very first one, and now I've got over 9 years, and I'm going to be looking good as far as this credit age is concerned. Or I can just be patient, hang on to everything that I have, maybe close the medical credit line once I'm done paying off the balance I currently have on there. But you get how that works. It's you gotta make sacrifices. You have to figure out what works for you. Low impact factors. these don't really affect your credit score as much as you might think. You need to know where you can take a hit. My total accounts, for example, I've got 9 open accounts, 5 closed accounts. That's 14 total accounts. Now, open and closed accounts, what this takes into account is credit cards, auto loans, student loans, other loans, which would be like, I think I have, or at least had an account. It was just a line of credit through a bank, like a personal debt consolidation type of loan. I never actually used it. I just opened it to have it in case I ever wanted to use it. And then I left the bank and closed it. Kind of pointless. It was there. It counted as an account. I don't have 14 open accounts right now, but as you saw, most of my open accounts are credit cards. Even though I only use one of them on a daily basis, maybe 3 of them total, I have 9 open credit cards, and just by keeping them locked up in the safe at the bank security vault, my credit score is doing nice because of that. A home equity line of credit or a mortgage are sometimes reported to the credit bureaus. Sometimes they're not. It depends if it's a private loan. It depends if it's a federal loan. It depends on a lot of factors, but that you can't guarantee that it is or isn't going to be on your credit report. That depends on you. That depends on who you go through, what type of company they are. Ask them about their policies and procedures for credit reporting. It might be good to have, let's say, for example, you need more accounts, you need more on-time payments to get your credit score up. It's going to help you to have a home equity line of credit or a mortgage account that you're making a monthly payment on. Overall, the more accounts you have and the more often, or not even the more often, but the more responsible you are with those accounts, your credit is going to naturally get good as long as you take good care of it. Forget about the home equity line of credit and the mortgage. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But credit cards, auto loans, student loans, and other loans, which is pretty much any other type of loan except for payday loans. Now that depends on the collection agency. If you have a payday loan, the collection agency can report it to the credit bureaus, but generally the actual creditor doesn't. So it depends what type of line of credit you have, but some are reported to the credit bureaus, some aren't. It's expensive to report debt to the credit bureaus. So a small agency, one with maybe 20 collectors, they might not report your debt to the credit bureaus, but you might have someone else might have that same debt that just happened to end up with a different agency that has 500 employees, a much larger agency, and they might have a contract with TransUnion to actively report credit. Hard inquiries, as you can see, I'm a business owner, and I have a thing for credit cards. You've seen all the credit cards I have just inside of this 1 year, but owning a business has definitely taken a toll on my credit. Just starting up a business from the ground up, my credit was already bad when I started the business, and it just got worse and worse and worse until I actively started working on it. Hard inquiries fall off after 2 years. Have a 2-year plan. If you want to buy a house and you want to buy a house this year or next year, try to keep the hard inquiries down. If you want to buy a house 2 or 3 years from now, have as many hard inquiries as you want. They're weighted so lightly that it's not going to kill you. Just like the total accounts. 0 to 5 isn't good. 6 to 10 isn't good. 11 to 20 is good. And 21 or more is great. But all in all, this doesn't have that much impact on your credit anyways. Hard inquiries, get them all out of the way early. Open as many lines of credit as you can young, so that those hard inquiries fall off by the time you're ready to buy a house. Have a 2-year plan. Notice the brackets here. If I move the mouse, it's going to cover it up. But there's 0 hard inquiries. That's the best number that you can have. And then there's 1 to 2 hard inquiries, you're in a bracket. 3 to 4 hard inquiries, you're in a bracket. 5 to 8 hard inquiries, you're in a bracket. And 9 or more hard inquiries, you're in a bracket. So hard inquiry number 1, 3, 5, and 9 are harmful. Hard inquiries number 2, 4, 7, or 10 and up are less so, and less harmful. So weigh the pros and cons. One of the questions that I got, and I'll get there in just a minute. Excuse me. Yes.
Would you maybe?
So one of the questions that I got was, should I take the hard inquiry and get a credit line increase, or should I avoid the hard inquiry and prevent the credit line increase? Now, you need to weigh the pros and cons there. You know your credit situation better than anyone else. I mean, I could take a look at your credit report and I could let you know what I think is in your best interest. But when it comes down to it, you know what's best for you. You know what your plans are. That's why I say to have a 2-year plan at the very least. Know what the next 2 years of your life are going to look like, and know what you want that third year after that to look like. I personally think that the average person should be looking about 5 years ahead into the future when it comes to finances. At least have an idea of where you want to be financially 5 years from now. But again, I'm going off on a tangent. I don't want to get there right now because that's not what this video is about. So there's some myths. I'm sure that plenty of you have heard these myths. I think they're all very harmful myths. It's good to carry a balance. No, false. It is not good to carry a balance ever. It's okay to carry a small balance, but you are always better carrying no balance. I've heard people justify it like, well, if you're not using your credit at least a little bit, you're not profitable to the banks that are issuing you the credit. So why would it be in their best interest to help your credit score? Well, there's a fallacy with that logic, and that is that the point of your credit score is to indicate to the creditors how likely you are to repay other creditors. If you pay off your balance in full every single month on a credit card account, you're showing the creditors that you are capable of repaying creditors on time, in full, without fail. So it is not good to carry a balance. In fact, it is good to carry no balance. If you have 8 credit cards or 9 credit cards, whatever, if you have a lot of credit cards like I do, and as soon as the statement period ends for those credit cards, they're all at 0, and you have a 0% credit utilization, that is where you're going to see the best increase on your credit report, or you're going to see the most positive results that way. So it is not good to carry a balance. There's only one credit score. False. That's not true. There is actually 3 credit bureaus. It depends how you look at it. There's actually more like 5 credit bureaus. But the main ones, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then there's the Fair Isaac Corporation, or FICO. FICO has their algorithm that they use to determine a credit score. And then Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion all use some variation of Vantage Score. I believe I said at the beginning of the video that it's Vantage Score 3 or 4 that they're using. It was Vantage Score 2 back when I was filing my disputes of my credit. But there are a lot of different credit scores. I personally choose to go by what TransUnion says because TransUnion is so widely used. If I apply for a credit card, I generally see it hit my TransUnion credit report in the form of a hard inquiry before it hits any of the other ones. If it hits any of the other ones for that matter. So there's plenty of credit scores. Make sure you at least know what they all say. Make sure you know what all of your credit reports say, but know that you have a lot of different credit reports and a lot of different credit scores. If you have a 640 credit score or a 650 and you think you should be getting approved for unsecured credit, make sure you check your other credit scores so that you're not shocked when you get denied and find out that you have a 639 with Experian, or I don't even want to talk about FICO right now because they're so off the charts. They're so different, and not many companies actually use them anymore. FICO, it's more common in the home equity line or mortgage world, but even there, we're seeing Vantage Score-based systems used more often these days. So, know all of your credit scores and take a look at all of your credit reports. Know what's going on with your credit. There's a lot of scores, there's a lot of reports. you need to check them all out individually. Married couples share a credit score. False. They don't share a credit score. They might have shared credit, and one spouse doing something negative can impact the other spouse's credit if they have shared accounts. But they don't share a single credit score. Paying debts removes them. No, paying debts does not remove them. Paying debts will report the account as paid in full or settled in full. After a certain amount of time, it will fall off of your credit report. I believe it depends on the state you're in, actually. Where I live, it's 7 years. It's the same with statute of limitations. Different states have different statute of limitations for filing legal action regarding a debt. It's the same thing with what falls off your credit report after how long. Just like a bankruptcy. A bankruptcy might stand for 7 to 10 years based on what state you're in. But yeah, that's that. Paying a debt doesn't remove it. Only time will remove it. Paying a debt will just make it reflect in a positive way instead of a negative way on your credit report. You don't owe a debt if it's not on your report. That's false. There's plenty of debt out there in the world that people owe that isn't reported to the credit bureaus. Just because it's not reported to the credit bureaus doesn't mean that they don't owe it. You can be sued for a debt that hasn't been reported to the credit bureaus. So if you get a call from a collection agency and they're trying to collect on a debt and you don't see it on your credit report, pay the agency as long as it's legitimate. You know what debts you've obtained. It's pretty easy to track the debt down. If you're told that you owe a debt for a Victoria's Secret credit card, call Victoria's Secret. Follow the chain of title. Figure out who they sold it to. Just because it's not on your credit report doesn't mean you don't owe it, and it doesn't mean that you can't be sued for it. What else do we have here? Credit repair companies can do more than you can. Not true. That is the biggest misconception. That one drives me nuts. You are so much more capable of managing your credit score than a credit repair company. If you watch the longer of the two videos that I put up on credit repair and filing your credit disputes, there's a phone call where I call a credit repair agency. I have it on speakerphone. Before I call them, I explain how they operate. I ask some questions. The guy basically corroborates exactly what I told you, the viewers, ahead of time. Someone asked me in the question, is it a scam? So I guess we'll get to that in a minute. Is it a scam? I think so. I probably shouldn't say that, but yes, I think they're scams. Technically speaking, a lot of them actually will get your credit score up, but please don't pay them. Please, please, please don't pay them. I would prefer to personally help you than for you to go pay somebody. And I won't charge you anything. Let's see. Income or demographic affects credit. No, it doesn't. Your income and your demographic do not affect your credit. The only thing that your income is going to affect is your ability to repay credit. But don't spend what you can't afford to repay. Don't think of a credit card as being cash. It's not cash. Don't spend cash that you don't have to spend. And if you're going to use credit to buy something that's outside of the realm of what you can afford, make sure that you can structure a plan to repay it. But as I'm saying, the only thing that income has to do with credit is your ability to repay it. Having a better job doesn't affect your credit score, which is the next one. A better job equals a better credit score. Not true. Your job does not affect your credit score. If you're applying for a job, some places will actually pull your credit score. They have to ask for your permission, obviously. But some places will check your credit, and that will be a factor in whether or not you get the job. Now, some more misconceptions. Closing a credit card will improve your score. As we saw, closing a credit card, as we saw right over here, yeah, it can positively impact certain things. So that just jumped up from 2 point whatever to 3.5 years. So yes, it can positively impact it in a certain way, but closing a credit card does not improve your score, or as a general rule. Let's say, for example, I close these two right here. It jumps from 2.08 years to 1.06 years. That's bad. So it can or it can help or it can hurt it. Make sure you know which direction you're taking it by closing that account. You can't recover from a bankruptcy. That's false. You can recover from a bankruptcy. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes hard work, it takes budgeting, it takes discipline, it takes self-respect, but you can recover from a bankruptcy. But try to avoid a bankruptcy at all costs. If you have to file bankruptcy, just remain hopeful because you can recover. You just need to reform a little bit. Debts do not need to be paid. False. Debts do need to be paid. That's the point of debts. I've been watching Judge Judy lately, and she rips people apart when they think that they're entitled to not repay their debts. That's just the world we live in. A contract is a contract. I can't tell you how many times a day my collectors hear on the phone, I don't need to repay that because I didn't physically sign anything. You know what? It's 2018. An electronic signature is a signature. You think that if you apply for an American Express card online and you get approved and you rack up $10,000 on that Amex card, you think Amex isn't going to sue you and win just because you didn't physically sign a piece of paper? That's not the way the world works. Debts do need to be paid. The YouTube videos that you see where people saying you don't need to pay collection agencies, you don't need to pay creditors, I guarantee those people don't have the credit score that they would probably like to have. And if they do have a somewhat decent credit score, it's mostly a result of gaming the system. If somebody is on YouTube and they're encouraging you to not pay your debts, I think that says more about the person than it does the system, to be honest. What does it say about your integrity if you think it's okay to borrow from people and not repay them? Just because it's a bank doesn't mean it's okay to not pay them. Just because the bank is worth millions or billions of dollars doesn't mean it's not okay to pay them. You borrow money, you pay it back. That's the world we live in. That's our economy. We would have a much better economy if people weren't in so much debt, if people could manage their finances better. If you can't afford to live in a $300,000 house, don't buy a $300,000 house. You know, I mean, to me it sounds so simple, it sounds so stupid, but if you search collection agency on YouTube, you'll find thousands of videos of deadbeats, you know, people that look like, I don't even want to get into it, but people that you know aren't exactly corporate executives or credit experts telling you you don't need to pay collection agencies or you don't need to repay debts. Forget about them. They're not giving you good information. That's bad advice. So it's a harmful myth. Building credit from no credit or bad credit. This is supposed to be the crux of the video, so to speak. So, building credit from no credit or bad credit. 640 is the magic number. Shoot for 650. You might have a 640 with one credit bureau and then have a 630 or a 620 with another credit bureau. So make sure you check all of your credit scores. 640 is the number in which creditors will start giving you unsecured credit. Unsecured just means that you don't have collateral held against it. And we'll get to what a secured credit card is in a minute because it's very important. Forget FICO, use Vantage Score. Everyone in the world pretty much uses Vantage Score. I think FICO is antiquated at this point. I really don't see FICO being used for much of anything. But on all those credit repair message boards online, it's crazy how many people are obsessed with FICO. Your FICO score is so... It doesn't matter. Discover, actually, if you have a Discover card, you have free access to your FICO score at any time. But Discover doesn't even use your FICO score to approve you for their credit cards. They use Vantage Score, the Vantage Score model. So it's kind of crazy. FICO is antiquated. It's good to know what your FICO score is, but don't stress about it. Worry about your Vantage Score. Your Vantage Score is the one that affects your Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion accounts. Bad credit, dispute everything. Watch the previous videos on my channel. I explain how to go through the dispute process. Don't hire a credit repair agency. All they're going to do is dispute everything on your credit report. They're going to do it slowly over the course of 4 months minimum. They're going to charge you $100 to $150 a month so that by the end of it, you're paying them a minimum of $400. You can do it yourself in a matter of one day, not even one day, but 20 minutes in front of a computer. Type up a letter. There's dispute templates. I'll put a dispute template in the description of this video. There are dispute templates on both of the previous videos I've done on credit repair. Just fill it out. Send, print 3 copies. Send each one in to each one of the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and right away you'll see your credit score go up, because anything that the creditor isn't actively reporting, or anything that the creditor doesn't think is worth their time to respond to the dispute for, is going to be removed from your credit. Plain and simple. Dispute everything, see what sticks, and then work from there. So, watch the previous videos. I go very, very far in depth with how all of that works. No credit. Now, you remember that thing that we looked at where it shows that there's the 0 hard inquiries, and then 1 and 2 hard inquiries have the same results. So, you can spare up to 2 hard inquiries when you start out. Try to apply for a Capital One credit card, one of their low-end credit cards, so to speak, one of the ones that might have a higher APR. But you know what? APR doesn't matter, because if you're paying off the balance in full every month, you're not carrying a balance, you don't end up owing the credit card company anything. So you can go ahead and try to apply with Capital One. I heard Capital One is one of the banks that's more commonly known for approving people that have a lack of credit history. But if you want to be safe, you want to get a secured credit card. So some other options, if you're a student, Discover has a student credit card that you can apply for, and they'll generally approve people who have a lower or a more thin, as they call it, credit history. They don't have enough credit to get approved for a standard credit card, but you might get approved for a student credit card. If you have a checking account that's in good standings and you've been with a bank for a significant period of time, especially a credit union, a lot of credit unions can use their discretion when issuing credit. You can get a line of credit or a credit card with a credit union just because they know you and your account's been in good standings. If you don't have an account with a credit union, get an account with a credit union. If you're in check systems, you can get an account with a credit union, so that's another plus right there. Now, all of those have the risk of denial. If you have a low credit score or a no credit score, you're going to risk being denied. The only surefire way to start obtaining credit is to get a secured credit card. That's $49 to $200 that you put down in order to get that secured credit card. Then you spend that money on that credit card. That's your money that you're borrowing. You put $200 down, and Discover, in this case, because I have it up on the screen, Discover holds on to your $200. They keep it on reserve so that if you rack up a full $200 credit limit bill, you don't pay off that $200, then they have collateral to hold it against. That's why it's called a secured credit card. You're putting the $200 aside to then borrow from and show the credit card company that you're capable of paying a credit card off in full, on time, and be responsible with it. Now, a secured credit card is great because they're going to report to the credit bureaus. It allows you to build credit if you have no credit or bad credit. A lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to put $49 to $200 down for a credit card, because then it doesn't feel like a credit card. But you know what? You need to start somewhere, and sometimes that's the only place that you can start. Now, you can get, this drives me crazy, but First Premier Bank, you can get a credit card with them if you have bad credit or no credit. But you know what? That credit card is going to have a $200 activation fee and a $300 credit limit. So after the $200 activation fee and then the $89 verification fee, or whatever the case is, you've already maxed out that credit card before you've spent anything on there. I know that math doesn't add up, but trust me, I got suckered into that when I was 18 years old. It was very, very stupid. It's off my credit report now because I eventually just had to fork over the cash, pay it off. I ended up paying, I think, like $700 for, and I don't know, $80 worth of credit that I actually got to utilize. So, yeah, you might be able to get an account with First Premier Bank or Orchard Bank, but those are, I mean, they're scams. I can't even believe those companies are still in existence. I don't even know if they are, to be honest. I hope they're not, because they've been suckering people for years. Just don't fall into that trap. What I'm getting at is your money is much better put into a secured credit card. And then when you close that secured credit card, you get that money back. So, get a discovered secured credit card. Sometimes you can put $49 down and get a $200 limit. I mean, it varies. It varies depending on the card. The most important thing is to make sure that your secured credit card doesn't have an annual fee. You don't want an annual fee, and you need to be responsible with it. It's that simple. So, let's go through this. You put $100 down, let's say, and you get $200 on a Discover secured credit card. The Discover It card is a great card, great cashback benefits. Now, you use that card responsibly for a few months. You get, by doing so, you raise your credit score up to that 640 you need to apply for an unsecured credit card. Then you go ahead and apply for a Capital One Platinum card or a Discover It, regular credit card, a non-secured one. It'd be even better to do it with Discover if you already have the secured card with Discover, because now Discover knows who you are and they see that you make your payments on time. Once you get the unsecured card, or the revolving credit card as it's called, then you can go ahead and close out the secured credit card. Better sooner than later, because again, let's take a look at this. You want to hang on to that credit as long as you can. Now, you don't want to get to a point where you're 9 years and 4 months in and you have $200 on that secured credit card that's yours, and then someday you want that $200 back, so you close it out and destroy your average age of credit. So get that out of the way early. If you're going to get a secured credit card, get a regular credit card as soon as you can, and then close out the secured credit card, get your money back, and move on with life. It's really just that simple. You got to get over the mental hurdle of, I don't want to put my own money up to get a credit card. You might have to do that. That's just how it is. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a great first step. It's a great way to start building credit from no credit or bad credit. In fact, it's the second step that you're going to take after disputing everything that's currently on your credit report if you have bad credit. The next step is to get a credit card and use it responsibly. If you can't get an unsecured credit card, you get a secured credit card. Now, Discover It, for example, I've personally used that card. I like it. I actually love it. It's a great card, great benefits. It has no annual fee. They report monthly, and on the secured card, your deposit is refundable. So as I promised, some questions. These questions come from Reddit. I put a post up on Reddit. Are debt consolidation programs legit or a scam? How does becoming part of one of these programs mark your credit history for future credit loan applications? Now, as far as the second part, how do these credit programs mark your history? They don't do anything to your history. No one is ever going to know that you use a credit repair agency. But please don't use a credit repair agency. If you're considering it, send me an email. Please just tell me you need help. I'll help you. Just don't pay for a credit repair agency. I'm making this video so that you don't have to pay for a credit repair agency. I believe them to essentially be scams. It depends on your definition of scam. If scam is you get ripped off, then yeah, you're getting ripped off when you're paying for that, because you can do it yourself much better, and they are going to lie to you. They're going to mislead you. They're going to tell you that they have a special relationship with the credit bureaus when in fact they don't. The credit bureaus don't like these people. That's just a fact. I mean, these companies are credit bureaus' worst nightmare, because they have the automated documentation. They get information wrong because they're not the correct party. They flat out lie. They pretend to be you. They write a letter saying, I, John Smith, am disputing this account. They aren't John Smith. You might sign a letter of representation or a limited power of attorney, but you're not giving them permission to impersonate you, which is in fact what they then do. Because a credit repair agency can't write as a third party on your behalf, so they all just they they break the law. You know, they impersonate you. The one that I hired a couple years back, which is still to this day the most popular one. When you type in credit repair company, it's one of the first results on Google. They forged my signature. I mean, I signed something for them. I actually signed a document, and instead of taking my signature and putting it on their documents, one of their people just decided to go ahead and forge my signature instead. It's ridiculous. Now, they sent it to me instead of TransUnion by mistake. I'm sure it was a clerical error. I opened it up. I saw that they forged my signature. I was livid. Don't ever use a credit repair agency. Yes, I think they're scams, but, you know, whatever. If you use one, you might see your credit score go up, but I can assure you that there's a more effective way to repair your credit without them. What's the best practice when written communications is used to establish whether or not an agency holds debt validation? How do I write the letter? You're going to want to watch the first two videos that I did. I'm going to link to them below, or maybe I'll use one of those iCards that's up here or something like that. In my other videos that are referenced in the description down below, I go very much in depth about debt validation. If you ask a collection agency for validation, it's also known as a dunning notice. If a collection agency calls you, ask them for a validation of debt letter. I mean, again, it's 2018. You're going to find stuff online that says it's only valid if they send it out through the mail. You need a physical copy. But these laws and regulations were put in place a long time ago, and they haven't been updated in a very long time. It's 2018. I mean, you do your banking online. You really don't trust a collection agency to send you an email validation of debt letter. From my experience, almost all of our outgoing correspondence is digital. The consumers prefer it, but there's always that consumer that uses it as a loophole. You know, I want a physical letter sent out, or I'm not paying this. And then they cost us, 50 cents for a stamp. It's a slight inconvenience. And we have to wait a couple days for the letter to get to them. If you're only going to deal with them through written correspondence, I apologize, I don't mean to put you down, but that's not the most intelligent way to deal with a debt, especially if it's a completely legitimate debt. Keeping the lines of communication open is going to give you the best possible ability to negotiate with the agency and prevent bad, to prevent them from reporting things you don't want reported on your credit report. Now, if you want to dispute things with the credit bureaus, if you want to make sure the debt's legitimate, just go ahead and dispute everything on your credit report. I'm going to have a template down below. Watch my previous videos. I explain how to do that in depth. Oh, I also said that I was going to give a shout out to these people. First question about the consolidation agencies being a scam. That is Ski for Free 900. Meow is the person that asked about the validation, writing to the agency, the one that I just discussed. Now, View 2000 asked, a friend of mine went to the hospital a few years back and the bill ended up in collections. The financial assistance paperwork was done to the hospital a few months back, and the hospital decided to give a 100% charity discount for the account. Can this charity discount letter be used to remove the collections? The short answer is yes. There are companies that will buy specifically out-of-stat medical debt. If you're fortunate enough to have one of those companies purchase your debt and forgive it, they're going to send you a letter, and you can use that letter to have the debt removed from your credit report if it's still on there. If you have a collection agency calling you about it, go ahead and send them that letter. Just make sure the company that buys and forgives your debt is a legitimate company. Also, I hate to say this, but there have been documented events where companies have pretended to be charities that buy and forgive debt. They do that so that they get a great deal when they purchase the debt because they get it much cheaper than they would if they were buying it for the purpose of collecting on it. Then they go ahead and sell it for a premium to an agency that then collects on the debt. Just because someone tells you that your debt has been purchased by a charity and forgiven make sure you have documentation that actually verifies that. Research the company, make sure they're legitimate, especially if you have a collection agency trying to collect on the debt simultaneously. Don't trust someone's word for it. Make sure you have something in writing. But yes, if you have a letter, you can use that to remove it from, I think you meant to ask, to remove it from your credit report. Yes. To remove it from collections, yes. Also, same thing. Send it to the collection agencies. They'll remove it as long as it's legitimate. Make sure it has the original account number. It should have the charge-off date. It may or may not have that. That's okay. It needs to have your name. It needs to have the creditor's name. It needs to have the basic information to verify that it's the same debt. Now, A4 first, I believe is how you pronounce it, says, sorry if this is a super specific question, but I have a card that was charged off over 7 years ago, which I still have. Congratulations on not getting it repoed. That's insane. I've never heard of that, honestly. They never repoed it. I still drive and use the car. I got an offer in the mail to pay it off for about $4,500, which is the Kelley Blue Book value. I can afford to pay it off. How do I do it without affecting my credit? That's fantastic. You can afford to pay it off, but don't pay $4,500. If they sent you an offer for $4,500, you can get them to settle for probably $2,200, $2,300. Call them on the last business day of the month when those collectors are in bonus land, as we call it. They've already hit their goal at this point. Any overage is going directly towards their bonus check in some capacity. Call on the very last business day of the month. Say, I have $2,300 available, and I'm willing to pay this if I can get it paid in full today. Will you send me something via email stating that you're willing to accept a $2,300 settlement today? I bet you that if it's on the last day of the month and the debt is that old, it's probably out of stat at this point, as long as you're not mistaken about when it was charged off. 7 years is the general statute of limitations for most states. If you have the money to pay it off, pay it off. You're saving yourself a lot of trouble down the line. It's a miracle that your car wasn't repoed. That's great. I assume you had to deal with some harassing phone calls for a few years, but just get it out of the way, get it over with. Once you pay it off, you can settle as low as you want. But like I mentioned earlier with my student loans, once they're paid off, the collection agency and the creditor no longer have any interest in negatively impacting your credit report. Dispute dispute that particular item on all of your credit reports with all of the credit bureaus. After it's settled in full, I guarantee they'll remove it. That's just how it works. That's how the industry works. So, don't worry about how it's going to impact your credit if it's 7 years old, because you're going to be able to have it removed very easily after you settle it out if it hasn't already just fallen off of your credit. If you have the money to pay off a debt and you can settle it, go ahead and settle. Even if they're not willing to accept $2,300, you call them during that last week of the month, you're going to find somebody that's willing to settle for less than that $4,500 which they offered you in the letter that you received. Thanks for providing the awesome service. Thank you. I appreciate that you appreciate it. It's crazy to me that more people... I can't read today. It's been a long 2 hours here. It's really crazy to me that there's not more people out there required... I can't even read this. They think it's crazy that personal finance isn't taught in school. I think it's crazy too. What a world is it that we live in that they don't have programming classes and personal finance classes taught in middle school or high school at the very least. It blows my mind how many people are uninformed about basic credit matters when, I mean, who doesn't want to be a homeowner? Who doesn't need a car to drive? You need credit. Credit is a very important part of life. Yeah, it's crazy that they don't teach it in school. Sorry, I can't read that, apparently. Your question, I got a new credit card, so I was wondering if it's a good time to request a credit increase with my existing cards. I've inquired if my existing cards will perform a hard or a soft pull. I've heard, though, that multiple HPs, which I assume are hard pulls or hard inquiries, in a 14-day period count as a single inquiry. Actually, that's not true. I responded to you on Reddit. I think I overlooked that. I apologize. I was multitasking trying to make this video. If you receive 2 or 3 hard inquiries in a 14-day window, they all count individually. I don't know who told you that they don't, but I'm sorry, you were misinformed there. Each hard inquiry is its own hard inquiry, regardless of if you receive 2 in the same day. When I went shopping for auto loans, I got hit with, I think, 4 hard inquiries at the same time because the dealership was shopping for rates for me, even though I went in there with a pre-approved letter and said, this is the bank that I want my loan through. Those auto companies have deals cut with specific banks, so they're not going to take your pre-approval letter and necessarily go with that. So yeah, I ended up with 3 or 4 hard inquiries in one day for my auto loan. It happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Now, and I gotta wait for that to fade away. Would now also be a good time to request a credit line increase. I assume you mean CLI credit line increase, even if that means a hard pull or hard inquiry. Yes, a hard inquiry is so much less detrimental to your credit report than having a good debt to credit ratio would be, or a percent used. You want to make sure that you have as much available credit as possible, and you want to use as little of that as possible. A hard inquiry falls off of your credit report after 2 years, sometimes even less than 2 years. The effect of it starts to fade in under 2 years. So go ahead, get all of your hard inquiries out of the way young and early, so that when you're ready to buy your house, or you want to buy that expensive car and you don't want to pay a super high interest rate on it, set yourself up so that the 2 years is already passed at that point. You want hard inquiries because they don't hurt your credit score as much as other factors. So if you can trade a hard inquiry for a higher credit line, I say go for it. But again, it entirely depends on you. If you have 1, 3, 5, or 9 hard inquiries, or whatever it was, I forget the numbers. It's been too long since I was on that screen. I don't remember off the top of my head. But you know where your hard inquiries are. If you have 1 to spare, it won't even affect you. If you have several hard inquiries, yeah, that might affect you. But in my opinion, it's always better to have a higher credit line. The hard inquiries will fall off. Just get those hard inquiries out of the way, so that 2 years from now you're in a better place. But only you know what's truly beneficial or what's best. If you want to send me a copy of your credit report and say specifically, I intend to buy a house at this period of time, how will this affect my credit score? You know what, don't even send me your credit report, although I am willing and more than happy to help anyone that has any questions. But they have tools where you can simulate your credit report. You can put in what your current credit score is. Search something like credit repair hypothetical tool. That's not what it's called. Credit simulation tool. There you go. You can figure out how it's going to impact your credit score. Now, keep in mind that even though TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian all use Vantage Score, they don't all use it the exact same way. So your results are going to vary from bureau to bureau, but you can get a good general idea of it because the Vantage Score is pretty well understood. Although it's proprietary, no one knows for sure except the Vantage Score people. But a lot of people have a good enough understanding of it to be able to create algorithms that represent it to a similar enough fashion that you can use these online tools to figure out if it's in your best interest to take a hard inquiry and obtain a larger credit line, or if that hard inquiry is going to be disastrous for you, which is usually 0% of the time. Hard inquiries are not a big deal. If we go back to that other slide, it is the lowest, the lowest thing that you need to worry about. It's a very, very... I'm sorry, I'm burnt out. I hope you guys got some good information. That last question comes to us from Parker LS. So let me know if you have any additional questions. And yeah, that was it. So thank you for watching. Let me know what additional questions you might have. Good luck with your credit, and I'm more than happy to help. Feel free to subscribe and click the notification button so that you're notified when I put out additional videos. Go ahead and ask as many questions as you want. All you're gonna do is give me some more material to make future videos off of. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I completely forgot. I told you guys I was going to show you what a debt portfolio looks like so that you know what information the collection agencies have. Keep in mind, this is all false information. None of this is real. What you're about to see is fake names, fake social security numbers, fake addresses, fake phone numbers. That doesn't mean that the phone number doesn't belong to someone. It doesn't mean that the social doesn't belong to someone or that name doesn't belong to someone. But the information that you're about to see is all 100% fabricated. So you're not going to be able to steal someone's identity with this information. So don't even try. Plus, it's a scummy thing to try anyways. But this is all completely fabricated. I want to make that perfectly clear before I switch over to it. Now, this is what a debt portfolio looks like. When a collection agency receives it, you've got the account number, first name, last name, social, address, city, state, or in this case, county, city, state, zip, phone number, home phone, cell phone, employer, work phone, email address, account type, creditor, open date, charge-off date, bank name, routing number, account number, return reason, which is account frozen, stop payment, account closed, insufficient funds, stop payment, whatever. I'm just repeating myself now. Check date, that could also be delinquency date. It also depends on what type of debt it is. If it's a credit card, you're not going to have a delinquency date, but the charge-off date is going to be the delinquency date. The open date and the charge-off date might be 10 years apart on a credit card if you kept it in good standings for several years. But this particular fake portfolio or mock portfolio is a personal loan, like a payday loan or an installment loan, a debt consolidation loan, something like that. You've got the last payment date, the last payment amount, the original balance, the principal, the charged-off principal, NSF fees, that's non-sufficient funds, accrued interest, current balance, reference name, reference phone number. You might have some other fields. You might have something like credit score, for example. So ignore this. You're not seeing this right now. Just pretend this was here. Let's say 490 and 850. And I got a typo there. And let's go ahead and... Alright, so now we got some credit scores on here too. Now a collection agency like me might want to sort the accounts by the credit score, largest to smallest, and pass the accounts out first. So first and foremost, you're working Deanna Luja's account because she's got that perfect 850 credit score that everyone wants. And then the next account that's going to be called is Virgie Keel. Now, most agencies don't actually work that way, and most collection agencies don't actually have a credit score. They have what's called a recovery score, which is similar to a credit score, but it's based off of your repayment history instead of your the factors that your credit report is based off of. So again, this is all completely fictional, fabricated information. I did this just to show you what a debt portfolio looks like, so you know that when your account has been purchased by a collection agency, this is what it looks like. If this was actually a debt portfolio, this particular portfolio would be, for example, and I hope you guys find this interesting, that's why I'm showing you, that is $343 $343,241. Now, let's say that it's a zero agency portfolio. It's brand new. Let's say that the agency is paying 12 cents on the dollar for this debt. So that portfolio of, what is this, 500 accounts? My camera is covering the screen. I can't see. 500 accounts. So they're paying $41,000 for these 500 accounts. So, just out of curiosity, the average balance would be, oh no, not average balance, the cost per account would be $82. So the agency, each one of these accounts is worth $82.38 to that collection agency that purchased this debt. Now, collection agencies only liquidate anywhere, we'll say around 10 to 20% per portfolio. So the majority of people don't pay the first agency, which is why the debt is placed or sold so many times until they get it down to just the, pardon me for saying this, the deadbeats, the losers, the people who have no intention to pay no matter how many times you prove them that they owe the debt. And those are the people that need to be sued to get their money. But take care of your debts early. Don't let it get to those low-level collection agencies that you hear the negative reports about on the news, that are just purchasing information online that looks like this. They don't care. They don't care if the information's accurate or not. They're going to try to collect on it. Licenses are expensive. My agency is licensed, but we only operate in certain states because certain licenses are very expensive. Some agencies operate in any state they want to, regardless of whether or not they're licensed. That's the way the industry can be sometimes. So if you're paying off the debt with that first agency that calls you instead of the fifth one, you're dealing with the legitimate guys and not the bad apples. So that's that. Pay your bills, dispute your credit reports, verify the information, and get that perfect 850. Thanks for watching.